So if your advert is for is sitting next to a local article about, say, Soho, why cannot the advertising message be about the specific boots in Piccadilly Circus? If it's on TrustedPlaces, for example, and it's on a specific page that has is tied into a locality, why people cannot customize what it is they're saying to that location. And now, my strong suspicion there is that ROI-wise, that would be much more effective than a generic CPM banner campaign. My strong suspicion as well is that the reason that this is not happening is that the market is not there yet. I think the players, if you like, are too comfortable with the way things are right now. It's much easier to buy, I don't know, 500,000 impressions at £5 CPM, if I'm a media buyer, for example, media planner, than to go to that next level and try to do something more complicated. I do see change happening slowly, but I think we've got quite a way to go there to actually make, if you like, national advertising, bring it down to a local level.
I think that that example of sort of hyper-local advertising targeting is kind of quite interesting. I question whether it's actually social media, though, if you're talking about display advertising. So I guess it's sort of a challenge back to you there. But
no, it doesn't have to be. That's what I'm saying. That I don't think we necessarily always need to be thinking and tying in an advertising message with a social activity online. And what I mean by that is actually the activity itself. The message can be tied in around the activity without impacting it in any way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So do you mean sort of some user-generated activity or some brand-generated activity?
No, I mean user-generated activity that happens, you know, around the commenting on a news article around the review on a restaurant, around a video that has, again, a local context. That activity can be left on its own to do whatever it wants without the advertiser, if you like, trying to interject in any of the social interaction that is taking place. But it can sit next to it in a much more meaningful and relevant way.
Yeah, I guess that's what the content is that the user is coming to see, is that user-generated content, though. So I guess it is quite important in a local sense, because if you have a very, very local place and that kind of local knowledge from consumers that have been there before is actually the reason you're coming to that website and the reason that display advertising is effective. So I think user-generated content, we need to maybe distinguish between reviews and spontaneously generated comments about a particular place versus, say, running a competition to submit a video about why you love boots or whatever it may be.
Yeah, that's exactly what
yeah.
I mean.
And I think for me, this all comes down as well to how companies understand their customers and the wider consumers more, and how they can use newer technology platforms and mobile to better understand and analyze their customers. So if you take any individual using social media sites at the moment as an example, then obviously they've got a number of influences, whether it's the people they follow on Twitter or whether it's their Facebook friends, and various open source platforms. So are there ways in which these companies can understand you as soon as you walk in through their shop door, or as soon as you do something, in terms of what influences you as a person, whether that's comments you've made, left your UGC activity, or whether it's what your fellow influencing people have made, and therefore what influence you as a customer and a consumer. And with the rise of mobile and the growth that will have in the future, again, I think there are a number of ways in which the relationship between companies and customers can massively improve using this technology, so that it'll be a better experience for both consumers and also for companies as well, in terms of getting the right things for their consumers.
I think one of the things that's coming from this discussion is that you've got it's drilling down into this shift in communication from broadcast messages where everybody sits in front of Coronation Street is the traditional discussion. You know, everybody sits in front of Coronation Street, shares the experience, they all see the same thing, they all see the same advertisement, it's a generic message that's coming across. One of the opportunities with you know, the sorts of things that Sokratis is talking about, using local as the distinguishing factor, but you're beginning to have more of a conversation with your audience, where you're understanding some of the context around which the advertisement is being placed. So that's becoming a little bit more conversational marketing rather than broadcast marketing. You know, the next stage on from that is, you know, we go back to the idea that we have these group of mavens, or whatever you wish to call them, these people with 5,000 friends who are opinion formers, who are incredibly valuable to us. You know, one of the challenges, I think, one of the opportunities of local meeting social is that if you can understand who those people are and make sure that they have a really good experience with your brand and a really good communication with your brand, the opportunity for them to act as exponents of what your brand is all about becomes incredibly powerful. I'd really be interested to see if there are any case studies that the panel have experienced that have brought that type of communication to life, or work that you're doing in those areas.
Yeah,
Carolyn.
We did a campaign with it's Volvo. So Volvo, traditionally seen as boring and an old man's car, and we wanted to try and create an emotional affinity around Volvos, and the way we did it was by if you drive a Toyota Prius into London, then you can do that for free in the congestion charge. But if you drive another car, any other manufacturer with an emission of lower than 105 grams of emission, including a Volvo, you must pay your £8. And so we put the facts together. We put a fact pack together, if you like, that says this is what CO2 emission is. This is what it means. This is the law according to Boris Johnson and his cronies, and we just identified the most authoritative political and environmental bloggers that there are. We didn't particularly go after London-based ones, but there was obviously a London sway on it because of it's about London. And we just seeded an idea, so we sort of positioned Volvo as a slightly coy facilitator to the debate, and it went crazy. Guido Fawkes blogged it, Dizzy thinks, so Guido Fawkes is the guy that practically brought down the government over expenses. Dizzy thinks, we got coverage on Boris's own website as well as the Labour Party website, and then they ended up in traditional media, so full page in Guardian, The Independent, then ended up on BBC News, and the result was that Boris, in his infinite wisdom, has decided to review the law on who can and who cannot drive into the congestion zone. The point being is, if it's going to be an emission charge, call it an emission charge, don't call it a congestion charge. So I think that's perhaps an example of where we didn't go in, with two big boots and say we should change the law, like Porsche did. We said, this is just an idea, and this is seeding the idea to the most authoritative thought leaders in those spaces.
One of the things that creates is some danger for the brand, isn't it, in terms of ceding control?
It was high risk. And I remember, because I come from a political background, and of all the bloggers in the world and all the journalists, that environment and politics are the most volatile, and you can't control them, you can't sway them, you can't tell them what to write or what to think or when. So yeah, it was a risky strategy, but we knew we had a good idea. We knew that it had a basis of truth, if you like. And so yeah, I think it was quite a brave thing to, for boring old Volvo to do.
And I think that plays to the point around us all having ideas of what a good brand and a bad brand is. So we're all advocates for certain brands, whether it's the clothes we wear or the places we go. And we go to those places or shop at those shops because we like them. So therefore, we're advocates of them. And social media allows us to have an outlet and to be a voice for them in new ways. And I think there is something around the definition of what we all define as a good and bad brand. There are some brands that we have to interact with, like it or not, whether that's getting on the tube, so TfL, or going to the post office, and there are others that we choose to. And I think it comes down to how we give an outlet to our voice and our opinions on what our idea of a good brand is.